well all here. It looks like it. Good. We're almost all here. But anyway, so now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what you're going to do, but also what I'm going to expect from you on Monday. Okay. So this is just to give you a general orientation. Among the things that we'll be doing on the 19th, it'll be the starting point for your design. This will be when Bagan Municipality comes in. Okay, and the group project will be hands-on, give you hands-on experience, and it'll give you also the data that you will have to analyze using the stats that Knut Hauge teaches you, among other things. But you're going to be making your sampling design based on the limitations that we give you and the question that the municipality gives you as well. Scientific writing and speaking. Okay, who's been to a conference here? Not that many, actually. Did you find most of the talks interesting? Hands in the air. Yeah, only two. See, there's your problem. Most of the talks not interesting, and frankly, that's a problem we're addressing right away. And how many of you have written anything in the IMRAD format? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? IMRAD? All right, over here. You know what that's for? Okay, you know. Yep. Want to tell us? Just say it.
For introduction, materials and methods, results, and discussions.
Yep. Now, I put it this way, how many of you have written something in that format? How many have written more than 10 things in that format? Ah, yeah, good, right, yeah. Okay, because this is the basis of scientific writing. That's the general format that we have for any kind of scientific writing in the scientific literature aimed at scientists, okay? And since a phenomenal amount of people get to this level without ever having done it and say that they are getting to do science is really a challenge for us. Because the thing is that your master's thesis has to be in that format, right? And nobody but this class will tell you that format and give you the practice you need to write your thesis within less than 2 years, unless you get an extension, but it's then going to be 2 years and 3 months. Okay, and it is a remarkably hard piece of work to do, especially if you haven't done it before. And if you haven't been practicing at this, you haven't realized how many have, how many ways it can be done. How many of you are published scientists? Hands a little higher in the air. Okay. And how many? That was an interesting response, and in fact, I'm going to pick that up again. Because, put your hands in the air, the ones who are published scientists already. Okay, right. And I'm going to ask you, keep your hands in the air and tell me which journal you published in. Oh, sorry, you first, you swallow. Yeah?
Most of them are Vietnamese journal.
Okay, and you were hands in the air because I'm going to miss you again.
Well, if a master thesis is
It's on its way to a journal?
no, it's not a journal though.
Okay, but that's what I meant, scientifically published journal. Okay, and yours was where?
Yeah, I'm a co-author of one journal of ecology.
From where?
It's published from UK.
Okay. And who else was it? Florian?
Yeah, +1 and Marine Ecology Progress Series.
Okay, +1, which is an open access thing, and Marine Ecology Progress Series, which is not. And you?
It's an Indian journal, but with a very long title, so I can't speak.
That's okay. Yeah. Okay. And you?
Journal of Virology journal.
Okay.
And,
Is it open access or is
yeah.
it? It's open access. We're going to get into the differentiations here. Okay. And that means basically that these people, did I miss anybody? No. These people have at least once gone through the process, the business of publishing a scientific paper. There's a whole lot of stuff that's involved in that and around that. But if you haven't actually done this, you haven't, and we're going to teach you this, of course. But if you haven't done this, there's no point in starting the discussion about scientific publishing. So what the fieldwork is going to be doing is you're going to be making your own materials and methods, and you're going to be applying it out in the field, and you're getting your own results. And the introduction will come partly from the question that Bagan Kamuna poses about the site that you're going to be on, and then you're going to tell us what your results have to say about the question that was asked at the beginning. That's basically what you're going to do. And you're going to do it in a scientific manner. How many of you have spoken at a conference or spoken in front of you? And hands in the air, just hands in the air. Okay. Was it, if it was international, was it international? Hands in the air. Okay, no, but nonetheless. And I forgot your name again?
Aurelian.
Aurelian, yeah. How was that experience?
Quite good.
Yeah?
A bit nerve-wracking considering who was in front of me at the time.
Right, yeah, the word nerve-wracking comes to
But it
mind,
went
right?
okay. Once I-
How long did you prepare?
How long did I? You mean how long I talked for? Or?
Yeah, okay. First, how long you talked for, and how long before that until you were ready?
It was about half-hour talk.
Half an hour?
Yeah.
Okay.
20 minutes, half an hour.
Yeah.
And the project lasted 6 months.
Right, and your preparation for that half an hour talk, how long was that?
Maybe a week or two.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But by then you already knew what you were talking about
Yes,
and all that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yes, yes. So you had to structure it
Yeah.
and so on. And that's also very typical, that it takes a very long time to prepare a very short thing. And that concentration is also one of the things you're going to have to do. And most people, who here loves public speaking? Yeah, exactly. There's the challenge as well. Most people cannot stand it. But now you've already broken the ice, so you know everybody here is equally idiotic. And it's easy this way. So there's a couple of things about this that are important to notice. Let me see what we got. Oh, yeah, that there's ethics involved in what you say. There's ethics involved in what you write. And we're going to give you some real questions and things to do in weeks 36 and 37. And there's a series of lectures here that are all linked: critical reading, role play, and discussions. So that means don't miss one, because we're building. And we are building. Every class here builds on the one before. So we're aiming to a final thing, but there are things involved here. And so please don't miss this. There's a series of lectures that we've developed that is going to be investigated. Yes, what does it say? Generating truths versus obtaining truths. Yes. The statistics, they will go also. Listen to Kid Pallier when you get him. You get an experimental design. And that's what you have to generate. Listen to Kid and talk with your TAs and all that stuff. You're going to have to generate how you are going to take the samples to answer the question. The lectures, I think I may have messed up the date on this, or is that you?
No, I corrected.
Oh, thank you. Bless your heart.
So there's statistics will be taught on Wednesdays starting the 9th of September, and 10 Wednesdays following, with the lab groups, the morning and the afternoon ones, on the Thursday following.
Right.
So you'll have 1 week to digest the full topic's worth of statistics instead of having it all packed in your schedule.
Right, yeah. And the reason for this is that what you do in the beginning determines how well your end product comes out. We had, years ago, when we were beginning the animal ethics courses and so on, the medical people have had ethics forever and ever, and they were trying to do it over onto the fish people. And so there was in the very first go-round, there was a big auditorium full of fish scientists and medical animal scientists and so on. Our education and our ability to put animals into groups is vastly different. And they said, Okay, you guys go off into groups and come up with the answer. How many pigs do you need to determine the dose response curve of a particular medication? They gave us 4 doses. And honest to God, the medical guy in our group said 1. Thank you. Honest to God. Okay, so your experimental design determines how strong your conclusion is. And that also determines what kind of stats you can use on it as well. So you can't, obviously with 1 pig, you cannot do any stats at all. And come on in. Just stop me in mid-flight, or do you want to just make your announcement and...
Just finish your
Okay.
statement.
Sure. No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Hello everyone. I just want to remind everyone about today's activities. At 2 o'clock we're gonna have another barbecue with free food for everyone. Yay! Just look so tired. Okay, we will give you free food at least. And afterwards, around 5 or 6, we're gonna have our city walk, which everyone is welcome to join. And yeah, we'll sell some beer for everyone who wants to buy some. And if not, just bring home. So we're gonna light up the barbecue at around 2, so we have time to go to the store and buy whatever you want and come back. And then
Okay.
the food will be ready.
And the barbecue is by
Yeah.
Peter Fjorden.
And same place as last time, so
Yeah.
behind BIO.
Yeah.
And on Sunday at 12, we're gonna have a hike or plan. So then you have to meet at the Lost Inn.
Okay, yeah, there's only 1 piece of chalk here.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It's so old-fashioned now. I know.
So I noticed that not everyone, which would say almost none of you, are following our scheme page at the moment and have first attended our event. So if everyone could just go on Facebook right now.
If you have your computers, go on Facebook. It's okay, but otherwise, don't.
So just search Steam and you will find us, and then press attend the event and you will get all the updates you need. And if you need a phone number, you can just call me. So if you're smart, you're going to write it down right now.
Could you please increase the size of the numbers? You're just
No, I can't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So see you in a bit.
Yeah, so about 2 hours probably.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
And your
And
name?
that was Thomas, by the way.
Questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I am not clear yet.
You're not.
She didn't understand what you wanted to say.
Yeah,
Oh,
today we're gonna barbecue.
Yeah.
At 4 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
So when you're done here?
Okay. And we have to buy food and drink.
No, we will give you food.
And
But you have to buy drinks.
Yeah, you have to buy your own drinks.
After the course here, lecture here, we come there.
Yes.
And next to the bio building.
Yeah,
Okay.
behind the building. You just follow everyone else.
And Sunday at 12.
It's going to be a hike up lane. Then you meet at the Lost Inn,
I don't understand.
the Blue Stone,
Blue Stone?
in the
In
middle
the
of
middle of the
Torgamani.
Yeah.
I can
In
probably-
front of Dickens.
Yeah,
In front
I
of
can just
Dickens
find a
on
picture
downtown.
and
Yeah,
post it on Facebook.
yeah.
Next.
Then we'll
And
find
this is a perfect example of what I want. If you don't understand, get it clarified right away, okay? Perfect.
Thank you.
More questions.
Thomas,
Can you post them?
should I wipe it?
Baker.
Thomas.
Why is so small?
Because he's teasing. There.
Okay.
Okay.
Any more questions? No?
Thomas,
Good.
who are you?
He's a former master student.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, oh, and 2 more questions apparently.
What do you have to take for the hike? How long will it be? What sort of, where are we going?
Our plan, I think it's an hour up,
Okay.
not that much.
Okay.
Let me say an hour up.
jacket.
I got a lot of time.
Dress for the weather and wear good shoes.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's probably gonna be shorts.
yeah,
I hope.
okay.
And then is anything happening on Saturdays or?
It's not planned yet, but I'm not gonna be there, so, well, if anything's gonna happen, it will be on the Facebook page. So, find it.
Yes.
Is it your favorite?
No,
No, it's
Steam is the,
But I don't identify.
Yeah, that's
yeah, okay.
It's one of the fish.
Steam is the student organization
For masters.
for masters. And they organize lots of stuff, but most importantly, the beginning.
Is the barbecue just like a social thing?
Yeah. Oh,
Like it's
yeah.
not compulsory.
Oh, no, but it is
No, no.
fun.
Your mom should come.
I'm hungry. Yeah, your mom We have dogs and babies in the class. Okay. So,
That came out. That
Are we done?
Come out a bit
I'm not
wrong.
gonna be there.
Okay.
So,
Continue with statistics.
or something.
She was there
Yes.
for it.
Okay, thanks.
See ya.
See ya.
That was nice. And
Okay.
spontaneous.
So, the group work.
wrong way.
Is it
No?
the wrong way? No.
Was it the right way?
No, it's
Sorry,
the
my
right way.
bad. Perfect one.
Yep.
It's not so warm.
This will be forming the core of what you do, and so it'll be assistants, teaching assistants follow a group, all the way through the course, right to the end. They can watch your lab work. They will be checking your calculations and statistical analysis. They will be looking at your drafts of the sections of report. So it's writing training. You will first be delivering this and then this. The deadlines are on the schedule already, so you'll see where this is. And then you'll have to submit a formal written report. There's a clue here also for the teaching assistants. I've done this very, very many times. And when you look at the materials and methods, when you have submitted, say to me, which it won't be this time, when you've submitted materials and methods, I can look at it and I can see, okay, they've got this section the wrong thing, they haven't explained that, and then how did this go, and so on. And okay, and then it's given back to you, you correct it, and so on. Now, and maybe you revise already then. Hopefully you do. Then the next while you get the results. Okay, so I've got the one section, the results, and it's going such and such and such. These tests, this is different, this is different. Oxygen was high, low, so on. And I say, there's no reference to this figure. Where did this come from? Blah blah blah, so on. And the test was fine, but put it such and such a way. And then that gets handed back and revised and so on. And then you go to writing the discussion, and that also gets around and around and around. And in fact, the last thing you write is the discussion. Okay, and that means that we've had separate chapters all the way around. And then you submit the full written report. 3 times in the last 2 years, when I read the full written report, and I'll be reading the full written report at the end, I discover that the results went this way, and the text goes that way. And it makes no sense whatsoever, depending on what the results were. So the interpretation of the results as it was completely at odds with the text that was being written. So the interpretation of the results, which is very clear in results, has been completely ignored in discussion. Needless to say, it's a heavy revision, but it also means that you cannot see the whole part by the individual parts as you're going along. And that's why you'll get 2 chances to submit the final report. You'll get a chance, you'll submit your final report, and you'll get a lot of feedback on it. And instead of going, ah, we did this, you'll say, oh, shit, we did this. But the final deadline is a little bit later, okay? Because when this is so common and so easy to do, we just want to make sure that it doesn't happen and makes you panic. Because by the end, it will make you panic. And there's no point. Because when you panic, you don't think clearly. And thinking clearly is the whole point of this. Think clearly from the very beginning. Okay, and we'll have the oral presentation and the submission. So the oral presentations, I have to get around here. The oral presentations They're a bit different, and just so you know, let's see if this works. Maybe it does. Oh, it works. Okay. And it's loading up, maybe. Yeah, there's a website for the BIO300. And we film them, the BIO300 presentations from 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014. And they are very, very different than what you've been doing before. And basically, when we're making you write this formal stuff here, this stuff here, you're going to follow typical standards of science and science publications and so on. When, for example, you did your oral presentation, did it bear any resemblance to the paper or the work? The format that you used?
In terms of in your idea?
Yeah, it did?
Yes.
And the way that you presented it, how did you do it?
That was quite different to the way I wrote it.
Yeah, there's the key. And I want you to remember, we're going to be drumming this into you. The oral presentation is a completely different beast than the written presentation. A completely different beast. And it's getting more and more completely different as the internet age improves. And it's getting more and more completely important as things go the way that they go. So we'll be drumming into you the differences between oral and written presentations. Whoops, I have to go back. Pretty quickly. And part of that is, it's going to come up. So, there's a grading system. The statistics exam is going to be 50%. But that's a take-home thing, don't worry about it. Besides which, you'll have done all the stuff beforehand, don't worry. The assignments, the written and oral field report, 50%. But the group work, okay, group evaluation of individual effort. Because here, the free riders are going to get identified. And if they've been a free rider, the grade gets multiplied by a factor of the group's evaluation of their individual effort. So how you work in a team will affect your grade. There is no hiding. And how you work in a team is like this. And these are the questions that we're going to be asking you. Okay. So you have to contribute to the analysis and interpretation of results, the writing of the report, the oral presentation, the creation and development of materials on your own, and the provision of technical solutions to problems. And then you have to participate in this, and you have to, this is basic group respect, okay? So I would expect that you come regularly and you do your fair share of work and you reliably complete it. Okay, and this can end up being a little bit more difficult. And the group dynamics, this makes a difference. And you will be graded by your group members on this. So whether you originate new ideas and you initiate team decisions. Are you a team player or a lone wolf? Do you think you know everything? Or do you know that you can help everybody to see the thing clearly? You readily accept changes, a changed approach, or constructive criticism. Constructive criticism. And you're effective in discussions and you're a good listener. So this is hard to get going. And it's more difficult as the problems start to come up and as the deadlines approach. And finally, you have to have a general team skill, which is a positive attitude, encouraging and motivating the team. You support the team decisions, you help them reach consensus, and you help resolve conflicts. This resolving conflicts is a thing that's come up again and again and again. So if you see something starting to go a little bit off, or somebody is feeling isolated or whatever, fix it right away. Because the thing that can happen in 2 months' time is that, say you've got a 5-member group, 3 of the members have gotten together and they're complaining to each other about the 4th one here. The 5th one doesn't know anything about it and is just continuing to meet up with and the situation gets worse and worse and worse, and by the end, this person has no idea that there's anything wrong at all, but there's something odd in the group dynamics, and by the time it comes to handing in that final presentation, these guys have done all the work, and this one doesn't even know what's been missing, and this one's been doing all the work but has no idea that there's a conflict at all. And these guys want to fire everybody, but they have never, ever expressed it. So take command of the dynamics in your group and make it as good as possible. Because as early as possible. Because some of you are going to be really good resource people for the other. But you have to work in a group. So now we want to bring out best in you, okay? And this will affect your grade. So our vision is that you're about to specialize. We're providing you training to be a professional biologist, to make order out of chaos and put it into your natural skills, okay? And this means that it will also provide you advantages in your future career. People notice, your employers notice when you've gone through this course, because I get feedback from other places. We can really see the difference. We can really see the difference. You're going to generate and communicate science, and you're going to be able to evaluate it, even though there's one molecular biology paper published every 30 seconds. 30 seconds. You're going to still be able to evaluate it. And there, that will be neat. Okay. The level is too high, so it'll buy you some time. So we're going to have the presentations of yourself on Monday. And of course, your networking.
So you need to be a bit more clear on what
I
they're doing on
will be.
Monday.
I have, in fact. In fact, I think I have something separate here on one of these PowerPoints that I didn't open.
Escape.
Escape, thank you. And,
Yeah.
okay, there we go. This one. Okay. So on Monday, you're going to be presenting yourselves. But presenting yourselves is a very, this is a translation of a Norwegian cartoon. I'll give you a minute to look at it. Okay. So presenting yourself and how you work up here is a function of the kind of communication that you get. And we're communicating with lots of stuff. My walking around here means I don't need notes. You already know I'm competent. The fact that I look at you means I'm talking to you. This isn't a lecture. This isn't one way. I'm looking to see if you're reacting. And the dress that I've got, it's not flowery. I'm not a pretty little girl. I'm also not power suited up. This is a working biologist. I'll be changing. But we connect with everything we do. People understand us non-verbally very, very fast. And they understand who's my friend by the way I talk. They understand who I'm responsible to by the way I talk. They understand who's interviewing me but doesn't know anything about what I do by the way I talk. Okay? So we're connecting in ways that are a lot less to do with the verbal than we know. And we have a lot more communication by the competence with which we stand here. Now, fortunately, on Monday, you're going to be talking about yourself. So believe me, you shouldn't need notes. But the other thing that let me see if this works now again. I think I've got it. Okay. This is your first student assignment. And it is because it's, the engagement and this communication and the speaking and the public and all that. Most people are afraid of speaking in public, dreadfully afraid. And I've had students come to me quietly in the pause, almost in tears and say, I really have a phobia about standing up here. Can I please be excused? And the answer is no. No. Because if you can't talk to people about your science, you're not going to be practicing science. Because it's not done when you got the results. It's not done when you wrote it up. It's only done when it's been communicated again and again and again and again. So you have the practice of the scientific method, which is everybody knows this. You ask the question, you have a hypothesis, you test the hypothesis, you find out good or bad, then you test it again. That's the scientific method. The scientific method plus communication means doing science. And that's the necessity of being a scientist in the 21st century. And that's also the challenge, because there are so many ways of getting science out there or getting the news out there. And filtering it out is a real challenge. So what we're trying to do now is get you used to communicating, because you're going to have to. And the whole concept of the clean environment for the well-being of the population is at the core of future societies. Well, biology is life. We are the society. We are this planet, and this planet is necessary for us. So dig in, and particularly the ones, there's some people here who are going to be teachers, and who are coming in this class to have some little extra aspect about being teachers, and they're going to be doing this directly to their kids in the classrooms. And it makes a big difference. Getting this message out is more important than ever. So, let's see. Okay, but the thing is, we do not and cannot make you a carbon copy of us. And I'm going to play you a little thing here. And it's Ken Robinson. And he says, schools kill creativity. This is from a TED Talk that's been uploaded about, I don't know, we'll find out in a sec, 16 million times or something phenomenal. 34 million times, okay? And we're going to go to about minute 8. Oh, come on.
Go down.
Yeah.
Mind you, they've had their 4th anniversary. Because it's a long time when you're 16. Anyway, he was really upset on the plane. He said, "I'll never find another girl like Sarah." And we were rather pleased about that, frankly, because she was the main reason we were leaving the country. But something strikes you when you move to America and when you travel around the world. Every education system on Earth has the same hierarchy of subjects. Everyone, doesn't matter where you go. You'd think it would be otherwise, but it isn't. At the top are mathematics and languages, then the humanities, and the bottom are the arts, everywhere on Earth. And in pretty much every system too, there's a hierarchy within the arts. Art and music are normally given a higher status in schools than drama and dance. There isn't an education system on the planet that teaches dance every day to children the way we teach them mathematics. Why? Why not? I think this is rather important. I think maths is very important, but so is dance. Children dance all the time if they're allowed to. We all do. We all have bodies, don't we? Did I miss a meeting? I think. Truthfully, what happens is, as children grow up, we start to educate them progressively from the waist up. And then we focus on their heads, and slightly to one side. If you were to visit education as an alien and say, what's it for, public education, I think you'd have to conclude, if you look at the output, who really succeeds by this, who does everything they should, who gets all the brownie points, who are the winners. I think you'd have to conclude the whole purpose of public education throughout the world is to produce university professors.
No.
They're the people who come out at the top, and I used to be one, so there, But, and I like university professors, but we shouldn't hold them up as the high watermark of all human achievement. They're just a form of life, another form of life. But they're rather curious, and I say this out of affection for them. There's something curious about professors. In my experience, not all of them, but typically, they live in their heads. They live up there, and slightly to one side. They're disembodied, in a kind of literal way. They look upon their body as a form of transport for their heads. Don't they? It's worth getting their head to meetings. If you want real evidence of out-of-body experiences, by the way, get yourself along to a residential conference for senior academics and pop into the discotheque on the final night. And there you will see it, grown men and women writhing uncontrollably off the beat, waiting to end so they can go home and write a paper about it. Now, our education system is predicated on the idea of academic ability. And there's a reason. The whole system was invented around the world. There were no public systems of education really before the 19th century. They all came into being to meet the needs of industrialism. So the hierarchy is rooted on two ideas. Number one, that the most useful subjects for work are at the top. So you were probably steered benignly away from things at school when you were a kid, things you liked, on the ground you would never get a job doing that. Is that right? Don't do music, you're not going to be a musician. Don't do art, you won't be an artist. Benign advice, now profoundly mistaken. The whole world's engulfed in a revolution. And the second is academic ability, which has really come to dominate our view of intelligence because the universities designed the system in their image. If you think of it, the whole system of public education around the world is a protracted process of university entrance. And the consequence is that many highly talented, brilliant, creative people think they're not, because the thing they were good at school wasn't valued or was actually stigmatized. And I think we can't afford to go on that way.
We can't.
In the next 30 years, according to UNESCO, more people worldwide will be graduating through education than since the beginning of history. More people. And it's the combination of all the things we've talked about, technology and its transformational effect on work, and demography and the huge explosion in population. Suddenly, degrees aren't worth anything. Isn't that true? When I was a student, if you had a degree, you had a job. If you didn't have a job, it's because you didn't want one. And I didn't want one, frankly. So, but now, kids with degrees are often heading home to carry on playing video games. Because you need an MA, where the previous job required a BA, and now you need a PhD for the other. It's a process of academic inflation, and it indicates the whole structure of education is shifting beneath our feet. We need to radically rethink our view of intelligence. We know three things about intelligence. One, it's diverse. We think about the world in all the ways that we experience it. We think visually, we think in sound, we think kinesthetically, we think in abstract terms, we think in movement. Secondly, intelligence is dynamic. If you look at the interactions of a human brain, as we heard yesterday from a number of presentations, intelligence is wonderfully interactive. The brain isn't divided into compartments. In fact, creativity, which I define as the process of having original ideas that have value, more often than not, comes about through the interaction of different disciplinary ways of seeing things. The brain is intensive. By the way, there's a shaft of nerves that joins the two halves of the brain called the corpus callosum. It's thicker in women. Following on from Helen yesterday, I think this is probably why women are better at multitasking.
Which isn't a good thing. Okay. But, okay. I actually agree with him. And we're going to be practicing what he preaches, more or less. Okay. In terms of, Florian, you can answer this. Science and nature, they are the top of the hierarchy of scientific journals, yes? And you'd be really happy if you got into science. You wouldn't be really happy? Would you be really happy to have got into nature? Why not?
Because I'm not aiming for it.
Okay,
Because
and why?
I'm doing science to get something out of it, and I don't just do it to get into the scientific papers. So.
Right. But still, there's an aura around them, yes?
Sure it is.
Yeah. Okay, and those are two huge machineries that are, in a way, the front line of scientific publishing and so on. Okay, they have such a huge machinery that when you get an article that is accepted to science, you're told don't tell anyone until it's published, and that is because they have a news apparatus behind them, and they will make a popular science type of thing, and they will, on the day it comes out, contact instantly all kinds of news organizations, which is why these news, when you read science news and you read it in many different sources, it's the same science story that has come out in many different places at the same time. Those journals are steering the communication. Those journals also cost a phenomenal amount to subscribe to. And they can take a long time, and their rejection rate is like 95% or something like that. For that reason, they also have what's called an impact factor. How much is the impact of your work increased by exposure in science or nature? Quite a lot. And most of the ones in biology have an impact factor of around, maximum 10. They have an impact factor of 30 and 50, So basically, that's the arena they're playing in. But science, journal, has developed, has taken Ken Robbins' idea for real and has realized that it's cutting out a lot of stuff, but it decided to have, it created the International Dance Your PhD competition, okay? And let's see if I got it right. Okay. This is sperm competition between brothers and female choice. And so this is, you know, somebody who has actually done a PhD on this, and now they're going to dance the thesis. 3 years of work.
If I was a peacock, to only you I'd show my tail. And if we were ponies in the New Forest, I'd nibble at your mane. Animal love, we just animals love. You're a sexual safari and I just can't get enough of your animal love. So let me hear you say that I can trek through your jungle and run all night and day. Oh, 'cause I can think of a better place to waste my time away. She told me that she liked Black Sabbath, so grew her hair and bought a leather jacket. Lost 20 IQ points, left banging drunk. But she'd already moved on. She don't stick around for long. Next time we met, she was old school blonde. So shake the mohawk on nose piercing, a tattoo of London calling. Gonna be the citizen and see. Will she ever make up her mind now? Always one step behind, trying to keep up with that road girl. She's no longer around. I hear she spends nights in the Ministry of Sound. You won't see her fighting in the mosh pits anymore. So she found pills and house and trance on the dance floor. No, she'll never make up her mind, 'cause she's just a scenester kind of girl who never cared for a melody. Oh, she's gone, but that's just fine. You don't like guitar, you're no friend of mine. I'm gonna be the man I'm meant to be. 'Cause scenester girls are not for me.
PhD student has to be one of the dance.
Hair and bought a leather jacket, lost 20 IQ points, left banging drunk. But she'd already moved on. She don't stick around for long. Next time we met, she was old school blonde. So shake the mohawk on nose piercing, a tattoo of London calling. Gonna be the citizen.
So, that puts a different spin on doing your PhD, doesn't it? Okay? And that goes into Science on their latest news page, and it's part of their, their communication apparatus. So the article for this would probably never get into Science. But there's 2 ways to get your message out, at least. And there's 2 ways to get it out in a very broad way. And one of them is not the traditional one, and it really has a big impact. It made you laugh. It made you laugh. And it was creative, and it was factual, and it was everything we want to be. Because intelligence is entertaining. If you're really smart, if you really know your stuff, if you really know the perspective of the listener, the audience, you can be entertaining, you can be funny, you can be all kinds of things. And suddenly you've learned something, and you liked it, instead of just sitting there and making notes, okay? So that was, escape, there we go. So, that means getting back to you. I'm not expecting you to do that by Monday. But, you know, there's this oral and written technique, and your grades will depend upon your presentation at the end, right? And so, everyone expects a story from a lecture. In a large audience, at a large conference, there are many who want to listen to the ones who will speak, and some of them are nervous for their own presentations, some who are there to be polite, some who are there to listen to you but thought you were going to speak about something else, some who are there to hear what you have to say. The last group is about 5%, and have you been listening to what I said, or did you read? Most of you are still reading, right? Instead of listening to me. And that was done on purpose. Because if there's anything that makes a competition away from me, it's the written word. We visually communicate really super fast. You finished reading that probably before I could have finished saying it. And you've been in hundreds of lectures where this is exactly what happens, and you're reading and they are saying it out loud. Am I correct? Anybody who hasn't? Yeah, okay. So we do not do this, and neither do you on Monday, okay? So we do not do this. The manuscript is not the PowerPoint presentation. This is where you want the focus to be on you, and this is part of the communication. Talk to me. Tell me what I need to know. Let me tell you. Because if I read it like this, it's the first indication that I am not competent. I'm not competent to tell you what I'm telling you because I need notes to remind me what to say. I don't. Neither do you on Monday. But this is this thing about the eye versus the ear. The ear processes basically all the time. The eye goes faster. The eye goes a lot faster. And that means that anytime you want to make your own competition, you do something like the previous slide. You just jumble a whole bunch of words in there, and people are going to tune you out within a half a second. Don't make your own competition. Make it a point so that you can figure out there's something visually there that is enticing, but they have to listen to you to get it. You can make your own story 100 different ways. So, okay, no manuscripts on Monday. Okay. And okay, this is a real abstract. I'll give you about 2 minutes to read it. And to read it so that you have an understanding. You too. Getting hard, isn't it? Okay. So this information was passed to a graphic artist. This is the result. Pretty easy to understand now, isn't it? So, getting your message out by using any means possible improves the clarity of the message. This was difficult. This, anybody can understand. Anybody can understand. Make a cartoon of it. Your visual gets it within half a second, right? Don't make text, make cartoons. Okay, so your oral presentation, right? You're all a bit nervous. Basically, the things that can ruin a presentation is if you're unstructured, you don't know your audience, and you have inefficient or ineffective visual aids, you didn't time the presentation, you didn't practice, you didn't actually plan the message. You're sort of going up there, oh, I'll talk about something or other, you know, or you have bits and pieces and you figure, ah, it'll be all right on the night. You didn't plan, and you had something technical going on where you need, you know, the aid to the dinosaur to say, push escape, you know, and you're wasting time. So these are some things that can ruin the presentation anytime. Okay, and you can have death by PowerPoint. The idea that you can get death by PowerPoint comes from, in fact, the Iraq War, where the people on the ground down there were trying to explain really complex systems and interactions between their units and the local Iraqis to the next level up, to the next level up, to the next level up. And basically they had to, the top level had to present to the Pentagon an overview of what was going on, but it had to fit into a PowerPoint presentation. And literally, because the complexity could not match the restrictions of PowerPoint presentations, you literally did get death by PowerPoint, because it was too complex and the message wasn't clear. And people would send people off into combat zones and things like that, where the outcome was rather lethal, but you couldn't tell that by the PowerPoint. So not everything fits into a PowerPoint. And especially complex systems like this, because this is sort of actually what it's like. It's overloaded graphics. The previous graphic was really simple. This could be death by PowerPoint. Death by PowerPoint also occurs when you have, the PowerPoints are a manuscript, which we already know won't work. And death by PowerPoint also occurs when you have too much on there, like this, or too many for the time allotted. Let me see. Oh, I had a technical jumper. Oh yeah, that one. Never mind. There you go. So too much text and confusing use of boards and overheads, or overheads for everything. You can also have personal tics. Foreign language. A lot of you are going to be doing this in English, and I think that how many of us have English as a mother tongue? There you go. The minority of us. So the foreign language part is usually enough to make you really nervous. But the personal tics. There was, for example, one of the first times that I had my own presentations filmed and then played back. We were in a group and they were trying to get us used to talking on camera, or what we actually looked like on camera. And there was this really nervous Norwegian who'd never done this before. And I've been doing this since I was 10 years old, so just apropos. And he didn't like not having an audience there. And so what he did was he'd go like, and speed that up. And he looks like an indecisive walker, you know, like this. And it gets really weird. I had I had a philosophy professor way back. And he was this big, humongous guy. And he was a priest as well. So he had a collar, the black suit and everything. And he was deeply into the philosophy. And we had to have him for about 2 hours every week. And he would do this. He'd start talking, he'd close his eyes, and he'd walk over here. And he'd keep talking, and he'd keep talking, and he'd keep talking. And then, by some miracle, he wouldn't hit the objects in the room. And so, in fact, what we got obsessed with was how often he had to open his eyes in order to avoid the objects, rather than what he was talking about, you know? And so those personal tics will distract the audience. When I said I was 10 years old when I first got this kind of feedback, it was an internal class like this. We had to do a little assignment and so on. And I had hair about like so. And it kept falling in my face as I was gathering my thoughts. And the class told me, you kept doing this. My hair is now always tied back when I'm talking. It'll never fall in my face when I talk to a class. I learned that at 10 years old. Because it's one of those tics that distracts you. She's always doing that. Okay. And of course, you want to be liked, you know, and you're looking for the faces that like you, that are paying attention to you, and so on. So you're smiling. So I like this kind of feedback. So I'll talk to you, and I want to be liked. And anytime I see maybe you over there thinking, "What the heck is she on about?" I'll go back to you. Okay. And I'll get that feedback. I want to be liked. But this means that if you think when I'm sitting in the audience and talking to you that you should be looking at me, I know the impact of looking at me, and I'll do this. And I'll take away the smile, and I'll look like I'm really bored. And if you're thinking that you have to look at me to get your game on, I'll make you want to look at somebody else. Okay? Because you want to be liked, and the way to be liked is to connect, to tell your story. Because what you're telling about is you. This is in the beginning. But when you have a science story, you really want that to come out. You have something that means something to the way this planet works. And you want to be able to tell it. And the only way to tell that story is to know that you're connecting with the audience. And the learning happens here. The connection, the communication happens here. Notice it's not going this way. It's going this way. Because it always does. Always does. And that's why also this learning here, that, you know, the general idea, yes, I'm up here doing a monologue, but I haven't been doing that all day. And it's generally the typical situation is the rooms are set up. When we changed the formation of the desks for those who came late, because it was lined up like this, sage on the stage, as if it's going to be a monologue. It's not going to be a monologue. And that's not the way you learn. It's not the way you communicate. You communicate two ways. I'm getting a message from you now. I won't tell you what it is, but I will. Okay, so, and reacting to the audience, it wants to be finished before starting. Yes, of course, because people hate it. And then there's, begins with excuses and apologies. Okay, so you never apologize. I lost the paper. But that's not how I'm going to start. I'll get you engaged in the story, and I'll say, you know, eventually, I apologize, I lost the paper later on, but you don't start with an apology. Excuse me for existing. No. You're here for a purpose. You're there, and even if you're running late, didn't have time to prepare, and all that stuff, don't tell me about it, don't apologize. Never, never read from a manuscript. Okay. Even when you're listening to the radio, you can tell when somebody's reading, even when they're good readers, which is why it's actors that are doing the voiceovers on all these animation cartoons and so on. Because reading something and making it sound like it's spontaneous is a real skill, and most of us don't have it. We don't have it. For example, okay, I used to be on the radio, and I never had a manuscript, but a couple of times I would have one. Oh, actually, we did. We used to have an international news program here. There was a team of us. We had newspapers from all over the place. This was when student radio, the early days of student radio. And we'd collect papers from, say, the Spanish, the Polish, the English, all kinds of news sources. And we'd, on that day, clip out the news items that we thought were most important. We knew that 2 readers, if we had 3 meters of news items put together, and sometimes translated on the fly, because they come from different places, we would have a news show. Now it was me. You're starting to get some trust in me now for being able to do this, and one or two others, and we'd say, "Good evening. This is the blah 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 news show, and our headlines from Asia, such and such, from this and that, so and so." And we'd go through, and then we'd say, "And now for the individual stories," and we'd be flipping back and forth, and we'd be doing as best we could to make it sound alive, and to make it sound very good, and and sort of giving those vocal cues where I'm saying, "Now it's your turn, Kathleen." You know, I'm saying, and blah 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 blah. You know, obviously, next story, it's her turn. And usually we were face to face. Well, there was one time where we were side by side, because there were redoing the studios. And we had another article that was translated on the fly. So, in big writing, and this meant that I could see the writing that was on Kathleen's page there. And it was cramped handwriting. She was doing really well. And the word was scientists that she was about to say. And she was reading very carefully. And I looked over and I could see the word was misspelled. And it was going to be scientists. And I went like this, and she looked down and she was about to say it, and I knew it, and it was the first time they had to actually cut the airtime because we couldn't stop laughing. We couldn't stop laughing. We were rolling over it, and we knew we were about to say scientists on air. And when we gathered ourselves, we could come on again. So reading something out loud really doesn't work, but the sound of it also doesn't really work. Even when you're not visually there, the sound of it doesn't work. It's quite obvious somebody's reading. It's a skill. I mean, here I'm saying, Anna Loa Simonelli, she's currently conducting postdoctoral studies at the Center for Excellence in Biological Education. Those are not my words. That's not the way I would speak. This is not the way I would have a conversation with you, even if I'm talking something high science. The reading of this, by completing the survey, you confirm your permission to use the material in research. You may be asked during the course to be video recorded, observed as part of the study. I don't say that. I don't say it that way. So don't read stuff down here. It's really hard to write dialogue in a way that it's written. So don't read from a manuscript, ever. And the other thing is this. You've all had teachers who do this. Movements are not suited to the message, monotonous, and, that's the talking to the screen. Talks to the screen. When you're talking, when you're teaching, who are you teaching? Is it this way, or is it this way? And usually, in big auditoriums now, instead of having the screen behind me, they've got a little one right here, or alternately one over here. So I don't have to turn around to find out where I am anymore. And neither should you. Okay? You have, unnecessary pauses, the voice volume. Okay, I'm used to this, so this is easy. Unenthusiastic, bores the audience, which is when I keep looking at you and making sure I've got you with me. Runs over time. Usually I've got it, but the runs over time is rude. Running over time is directly rude. And especially at a conference, because they've got this whole program planned. And there's other scientists there who are trying to get their moment in the sun. And if you run over time, it is directly rude. If you're allowed to run over time by the conference organizers, it's rude of them. It's incompetent of them. There's a schedule to be held. There's respect to be paid. The next person up is also to be respected. Maintain your time, okay? Don't be rude. And then no eye contact and humorless and all that stuff. Because basically, intelligence is funny. Intelligence is entertaining. When you have a scientific presentation, you can have a title, and this is the introduction to core presentation. You zoom in and you zoom out. This was my message, blah, blah. There you go. That's basically, is that what you did? When you did your talk, for example. You focused in and then you focused out?
Yeah.
It was a loaded question, so. yeah, it's pretty standard. And, okay. And when you get, for example, how your results get heard. Now, the Marine Stewardship Council, this is, what shall we say? In a way, it's a certification of environmental responsibility of, say, fisheries and so on, or the buying of the fish and seafood products in your grocery store. Many of them now will have an MSC thing on there, and that means it's been certified by the Marine Stewardship Council that the thing you bought in the grocery store has come from a source that is sustainable, or at least getting towards sustainable, or somehow managed, or whatever. And all these definitions are both controversial and expensive. So, but the Marine Stewardship did a small survey of how their results get heard and what has the most impact. Okay, so They heard about the global report's impact by, for example, word of mouth, and the MSc staff and so on. But the most interesting were the stories that came out of it. There's all kinds of stats and so on, but the things that the people heard about by word of mouth were the stories, even though a lot of the graphs are most useful, and the indicators are most useful, and the summary and the introduction is also useful, and the stories are not most useful. But the stories integrate all the rest of this. And that means the most interesting part is the stories, not the graphs, not the introduction, not the methodology, sometimes the indicators. But the stories, which there are the brown, are here, this small little bit here. So there's another way of building this up. And the reason I'm putting this to you is because we are hardwired for stories. It's practically in our DNA. Lying around the fire in caves, whenever, we would hear stories. That was how verbal histories get passed on. We literally have survived on the basis of stories. And that's the most interesting part. We absorb stories very quickly. You'll remember my story about the priest, but that was just an indication of a personal tic. You'll remember the stories, but you won't necessarily remember which graph. You remember its context. You remember the story around it. Okay? And, okay. So these combining factors for effective communication and all that stuff. There's ways of doing this. We don't have to go through that. And fast talking, screen marking. Oh, yes. This is excellent. This is excellent. Hans Rosling. Anybody know him? Yeah. Okay, good. Good for you.
I have a question about TED Talks. Have there ever been any in Bergen?
There
TEDx
was
talks.
TEDx.
What's the difference?
TEDs are official, the TEDx are
Unofficial or locally organized and satellite.
Well, they're
based.
kind of, they're semi-official because they're being
Yeah.
accepted by
Yeah.
TED, but they're not officially
Yeah.
TED organized.
Yeah.
I think they run in spring, is it? April or something like that?
Right.
That have them organized.
Why not do it yourself?
Oh,
With
God.
Wix, you can create your own professional website.
Is that every year?
I think so, yeah. Last 2 years.
And I started in our medical university, Karolinska Institute, an undergraduate course called Global Health. But when you get that opportunity, you get a little nervous. I thought these students coming to us actually have the highest grade you can get in Swedish college system. So I thought maybe they know everything I'm going to teach them about. So I did a pre-test when they came. And one of the questions from which I learned a lot was this one. Which country has the highest child mortality of these 5 pairs? And I put them together so that in each pair of country, one has twice the child mortality of the other. And this means that it's much bigger the difference than the uncertainty of the data. I won't put you at a test here, but it's Turkey, which is highest there, Poland, Russia, Pakistan, and South Africa. And these were the results of the Swedish students. I did it so I got a confidence interval, which was pretty narrow, and I got happy, of course. I had 1.8 right answer out of 5 possible. That means that there was a place for a professor of international health and for my course. But one late night, when I was compiling the report, I really realized my discovery. I have shown that Swedish top students know statistically significantly less about the world than the chimpanzees. Here, number of children per woman, mainly.
You can see he's already approaching it with humor, okay? And he started out looking like normal stats. And then it changes.
And they said the world is still we and them. And we is Western world, and them is third world. And what do you mean with Western world? I said, well, that's long life in small family, and third world is short life in large family. So this is what I could display here. I put fertility rate here, number of children per woman, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to about 8 children per woman. We have very good data since 1962, 1960 about, on the size of families in all countries. The error margin is narrow. Here I put life expectancy at birth, from 30 years in some countries up to about 70 years. And 1962, there was really a group of countries here that was industrialized countries, and they had small families and long lives. And these were the developing countries. They had large families and they had relatively short lives. Now, what has happened since 1962? We want to see the change. Are the students right? It's still two types of countries? Or have these developing countries got smaller families and they live here? Or have they got longer lives and live up there? Let's see. We stop the world. And this is all UN statistic that has been available. Here we go. Can you see there? It's China. They're moving against better health. They're improving there. All the green Latin American countries, they are moving towards smaller families. The yellow ones here are the Arabic countries, and they get larger families, but longer life, but not larger families. The Africans are the green down here, they still remain here. This is India. Indonesia is moving on pretty fast. And in the 80s here, you have Bangladesh still among the African countries there, but not Bangladesh. It's a miracle that happens in the 80s. The imams start to promote family planning, and they move up into that corner. And in 90s, we have the terrible HIV epidemic that takes down the life expectancy of the African countries, and all the rest of the world moves up into the corner where we have long lives and small family, and we have a completely new world.
Okay, that was a good message, wasn't it? Okay, so, frankly, I'm not going to be able to do that quality, but you're going to have to deal with me anyway. And you're going to be successful. Okay, so obviously I don't want you to stand here and do a boring PowerPoint on Monday. I want you to practice and aim for and face the audience, know your material, and so on. There's a self-presentation, okay? So it's going to be I want you to write on one page, half a page is fine. Conventional paragraphs, grammar and spelling, all the relevant details. I'll give you this in a minute. One paragraph to answer each piece of information. If a figure or photo is used on the paper, you have to refer to it. So, this is it. This is what I want you to tell me. Why you chose to do a master's in biology. Okay? That's all. So basically, you shouldn't really need a manuscript, but you're going to have to practice. Because you must use at least one PowerPoint or a visual aid. Okay? So you have to consider what you're going to use to get your message across. And you're going to have to figure out in part one, the theme, maybe where the stories lie. What are we going to remember about you? And you're going to use minimum 1 minute, maximum a minute and a half. When I say minimum, it means if you're up here and it's second 45, I'm going to make you stand here for a minute, and then you can go. And it's really, usually somebody has zoomed through their personal presentation and is standing there and saying, can I go now, can I go now? Because there's 30 seconds left. I'm saying, no. It's funny, but it's embarrassing at the same time, okay? So follow instructions. Follow instructions. And let's see. And again, you can be conventional or creative, funny or serious, doesn't matter. Get your point across. Communicate with us. Tell us those things there. No reading of a prepared text. Absolutely no reading of a prepared text. And for those who are not in the class or are going to be coming to do something to make up for what they're missing on Monday, only once have I had somebody come in and try to read from a prepared text. And I told him, you can leave now. And I stopped him and I told him, you can't do this. And asked him to put it down and talk to us directly. Absolutely no reading of a prepared text. Okay. And so and also enjoy yourself, because we don't basically bite. And then there's the submission.
Yeah, and well, I just want to also emphasize there's an oral presentation on Monday, but you also have to submit this written one, which you can share.
Right.
So submission we already told you about. There is one folder for the oral presentation, so upload your PowerPoints or whichever else visual aid you like to use. And there is one for the text. So there are two folders for two files, and they're labeled accordingly, so it should be easy to find.
Because we want them, we're going to put them in a file folder. Your last name first. So don't say BIO300 self-presentation as the file name, because these get loaded up in bulk, and it self-sorts, and we will never know whose it is. So we want your last name as the first and first name. And that's it for the PowerPoint. And then we want your last name and the first name. For the doc or the whatever it is. What other formats can we take in?
Doc or PDF preferably.
PDF of the information, okay? So this is what you're going to be presenting and talking with us about on Monday. And this is what you're going to be submitting about answering the questions.
By Monday.
By Monday, yes. And, okay, is this clear? Does everybody understand now what the assignment is for the weekend? Okay, so you're going to have to figure out something that lasts between a minute and a half that tells me who you are, where you came from, your previous education, and why you came to do biology here. Yes?
What happens if you hit 1 minute 30?
Try it.
He knows. He knows. Okay. On the day, I'll tell. There will be very clear signals about when you missed. Okay, I'll tell you now. Basically, if you've hit 1 minute 15, I'll be over here. I'll stand up. 1 minute 15. I'll just stand up. You'll know you're getting there. And this means by this time you're probably trying to get to the end, and you have a couple of points or something you were trying to make us laugh with. And you're going over the limit. You're going to 1 minute 27. By that time I'm here. 1 minute 30, I'm walking towards you. Okay? This will be really intimidating. And I'm not saying, and you'll know the sequence of events, right? And you'll know, get off the stage. But it's really embarrassing. And if you're up at 50 seconds, I'm still sitting here. So time it for, somewhere around 1 minute 15. And just be comfortable. Because if you're rushing it, you'll mess up the timing. Get comfortable with it. I have a vague idea about how long my talks last now. So I've been doing it for such a long time. I even have sort of an automatic clock in my head that says 45 minutes, So I have a vague idea how long talking takes, but you don't. Get comfortable with your story. Find out what